Hello everyone, hope you're all doing good. Today's lecture is about the pioneer minds and the emergence of Indian English writing. So every tradition has its pioneers. Indian English writing also started with a few fearless minds. People ready to create a new identity in the borrowed language, like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who translated the Kena Upanishad into English and fought for modern education. Then there is Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, who gave us the first Indian English novel, Raj Mohan's Wife. The writers and works we are about to discuss have been asked again and again in the UGC NET examination. So first, we talk about Henry Louis Vivian Derozio at Hindu College, Calcutta, then Michael Madhusudan Dutt, soon after a brilliant young voice, Toru Dutt. Toru Dutt's works are very important for the exam. Then comes Sarojini Naidu, the Nightingale of India, and her collections like The Golden Threshold and The Bird of Time. We will also cover minor poets like Ramchandra Dut and his translations of the Ramayana and Mahabharata into English. Manmohan Ghose joins the scene too. Then we move to the giants like Rabindranath Tagore with his Gitanjali and his other major works. We'll also make mnemonics to remember them. And Sri Aurobindo with Savitri and the Life of Divine and his other works in order, again with mnemonics. Both Tagore and Aurobindo are must-know names for UGC NET. Together, these pioneers transformed English into an Indian voice. They didn't copy, they didn't recreate, they used English to remember the Indian past. So moving on to Henry Derozio, the Indian English poetry begins with Henry Louis Vivian Derozio, we can say. Derozio's works like The Harp of India have been asked multiple times in the examination. He was born in 1809. At just 17 years of old, he became a teacher at Hindu College, Calcutta. But Derozio wasn't just teaching grammar or poetry, he was teaching rebellion. Through his fearless classes, he inspired a whole movement. It was called the Young Bengal Movement, a group that believed in rationalism, social reform, national pride. And how did he spark this fire? Through poetry. In this poem, To India, My Native Land, Derozio mourns India's lost glory under British rule. He calls for a revival of India's pride and spirit. In The Harp of India, his most famous poem, he uses the broken harp as a symbol of India's lost literary voice. It is a beautiful fusion of sadness and hope. Derozio's poems fused three powerful ideas: romantic love for nature and liberty, enlightenment focus on reason and progress, early Indian nationalism, the dream of a free India. His writing style was unique too. He loved using the sonnet form. His poems are emotional and at the same time satirical. He believed education could transform a nation. You can see this spirit in his poem called To the Pupils of Hindu College. And Derozio didn't stop at writing poetry. He also became the editor of the East Indian newspaper. Through journalism, he challenged colonial policies and social injustices. One of his boldest works is The Fakir of Jangira. It's a long poem filled with Byronic passion. It tells the story of forbidden love and criticizes inhuman customs like sati. Sadly, Derozio's life was very short. He died at just 22 years of age. But in these few years, he became India's first modern English poet, first radical teacher, and first literary nationalist. He proved the English language could become a weapon for Indian dreamers as well. Because of Derozio, the Harp of India was never silent again. Now comes Michael Madhusudan Dutt. When we talk about the roots of Indian literary modernity, Michael Madhusudan Dutt's name stands out. His early role in Indian English literature and experimental poems like the captive lady have been asked in the exam many times. Born in 1824, Dutt was fluent in English and deeply influenced by the Western classics. In his early years, he wrote in English. His poems wrestled with Miltonic blank verse, Byronic romanticism, and Christian themes as well. Not timid imitations, real literary experiments. His collection, Visions of the Past, 1849, shows this clearly. In The Captive Lady, it was written under the name Timothy Penn poem. Okay, he tells the story of Rajput king Prithviraj using British narrative style. Later, tired of being stuck between two worlds, he turned to the Bengali language and revolutionized it. His masterpiece, Meghnad Bad Kavya, it was published in 1861, brought blank verse epic into Indian storytelling. Other important works include Tilotama, Razia, Empress of India, and Sarmishta. Here, he blended Indian themes with Western literary structures. Michael Madhusudan Dutt stood at the crossroads between mimicry and originality, between Western forms and Indian subjects. Today, he remains a pioneer, not just for Bengali literature, but for the earliest dreams of Indian writing in English. His struggle was not just about language, it was about finding a voice. And because of him, many Indians later dared to dream in English too. Now we have Romesh Chunder Dutt. So some writers don't just tell stories, they retell civilizations. Romesh Chunder Dutt, who lived between 1848 to 1909, he was part of the famous Dutt family. Toru Dutt was also from his family, but Romesh made his own legacy. He was a civil servant, a historian, a translator, and novelist. Okay, he mastered English perfectly, but he used it for India, not for colonial praise. His biggest contributions were translating the Ramayana and Mahabharata into English verse. You should remember this. He used Tennyson's Locksley Hall meter. Imagine ancient Sanskrit flowing in Victorian rhythm without losing the Indian soul. And he didn't just translate, he reimagined structure too. In the Ramayana, he divided characters into the human group, the Vanara group, the Rakshasa group, like Milton's Paradise Lost. He arranged the Mahabharata also into 12 books. Okay, you remember these 12 books, okay, Mahabharata, and kept the Ramayana's traditional 7 kantas. So this is very important in the point of view of UGC NET exam. But Dutt didn't stop there. He also wrote historical novels like Slave Girl of Agra. Okay, it was about Mughal India. It was very important, recently asked in the examination. Now, The Lake of Palms, it was about Bengal life. Okay, beyond fiction, he hit colonialism hard with facts. His 2-volume book, The Economic History of India, that came out in 1902 and 1904, was groundbreaking. Okay, The Economic History of India. He showed how the British ruined Indian agriculture, Indian industry, Indian economy, etc. Then, other key works of him includes The Peasantry of Bengal, that came out in 1875, The Literature of Bengal, that came out in 1879, A History of Civilization in Ancient India, that came out in 1889, Famine and Land Assessment in India, that came out in 1900, etc. So, Romesh Chunder Dutt used English as a weapon, not to flatter, but to expose. He wasn't just a literary figure, he was a translator, as you know now, historian, nationalist, and a quiet revolutionary. Through Dutt, we saw how Indian English writing blended beauty with truth and revolution. Now comes one of the most Indian female writers in English, Toru Dutt. Okay, some voices are not just heard, they are felt across centuries. One such voice was Toru Dutt. Her works like The Sheaf Gleaned in French Fields, The Lotus, Ancient Ballads and Legends of Hindustan have been asked several times in your UGC NET examination. So Toru Dutt was born in 1856. Okay. Now from Sanskrit to French, from Calcutta to Cambridge, as a teen she travelled across Europe. She studied Milton, Hugo and all the classics, but tragedy struck early. She lost both her siblings, okay? This grief manifested itself in many of her poetry. Yet it wasn't just grief, it was fearless creativity too. Her, her first major work are A Sheaf Gleaned in the French Fields, 1876. Then there are 70 French poets translated into English, including Victor Hugo. Imagine a teenage Indian girl mastering French poetry and translating it into English. After returning to India, something deeper awakened in her. Okay? She was immersed in the epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata. As a result, she wrote ancient ballads and legends of Hindustan. Indian epics retold in English verse. Her poetic styles were vibrant, which incorporated blank verse, ballads, octosyllabic stanzas, and Petrarchan sonnets as well. In the poem, The Lotus, she places the Indian lotus above the rose and lily as a symbol of India's cultural pride. In poems like Sita and Lakshman, she humanizes these epic characters. And the next poem you must all have studied in our Casuarina tree. She weaves love, loss, memory into one symbol. Our Casuarina tree is frequently asked in UGC NET exam as well. Okay. She also ventured into fiction. Her novel Bianca, or The Young Spanish Maiden, though unfinished, shows her growing ambition. Her letters to her friend Mary Martin also gives raw glimpses of her struggles and dreams. Toru Dutt also died early at the age of 21. But her legacy stands forever. A bridge across continents, languages, and centuries. She showed Indians could dream in English, think in French, cry in Sanskrit, and still be proudly Indian. Toru Dutt, as a poet, created a symphony of love, loss, and brilliance. Now comes our giant Rabindranath Tagore. When we speak of the name Tagore, you're not just naming a poet, you're invoking a universe of thought, feeling, and invoking of freedom. Tagore's Gitanjali and most of his works are regularly asked in exams. He was born in 1861. He rose from Bengal's heart to become the first non-European Nobel laureate. Gitanjali, which was published in 1913, was not just a book, it was a revelation. It contained 103 poems, important to remember. 53 from original Gitanjali, 50 from his other books Achala Yadana, Gitimalya, Naivedya, Kheya, and others. The manuscript was lost and recovered in London. Almost like magic, when published, it moved giants like W.B. Yeats. Opening lines of Gitanjali goes like this. Thou hast made me endless, such is thy pleasure. This frail vessel thou emptiest again, and fullest it ever with fresh life. In his most famous lines from the collection, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where the world has not been broken into fragments by narrow domestic walls, he prayed for a free human spirit and the awakening of nationalistic ideals for world peace and enlightenment. So you should definitely have a look through the poem Gitanjali. Okay? Through Gitanjali, he sang of life's beauty, divine yearning, sacredness in daily life. Tagore also wrote about love, nature, childhood, death, national identity, etc. Now, in collections like The Gardener, which was published in 1913, The Crescent Moon, again in 1913, Stray Birds, 1916, Fireflies, 1928, all these poems transform rivers, birds, paper boats into symbols of eternity. For Tagore, poetry wasn't entertainment. It was a prayer, a form of worship. Okay? In pieces like Paper Boats, Endless Time on the Nature of Love, he invites us into a world where the fleeting and the eternal meet together. Tagore, along with being a poet of the soul, was a fierce thinker too. Tagore's novels and plays have also been asked in exams. His novels tackled social reform, national identity, and personal freedom. He published Gora in 1910. More than a love story, it's a quest for identity and belonging. Gora, Sucharita, Binoy, Lolita, etc., the characters are caught between caste, faith, and nation. Okay? Now, in the Wreck, 1906, he explores mistaken identity and women's vulnerability within rigid marriages. In The Home and the World, which was published in 1916, during the Swadeshi movement, the characters Nikhil, okay, he stood for moderation. Then there is Bimala, torn between duty and passion. Then there is Sandeep, who was a fiery nationalist, okay. Through them, he questions blind patriotism. He wanted freedom with conscience, not just slogans. His plays too are full of soul. In The Post Office, which was published in 1912, Amal, the character, waits for the king's letter, a symbol of death, hope, and transcendence. In Muktadhara, which was published in 1922, Tagore critiques technological tyranny. In Chandalika, which was published in 1933, he attacks caste discrimination through the story of Prakriti and Ananda. For Tagore, every character was a rebellion, a fight for dignity, spirit, and love. He wanted to change the education system in India as well. Questions based on Tagore's philosophy on education were asked again and again in your examination, so remember this. He hated rote learning. He hated mindless memorization. In the parrot's training, he shows how a bird stuffed with knowledge dies without ever flying free. Education for Tagore should feel like breathing, like growing in a garden. Okay? He founded Vishwabharati University at Shantiniketan, like all of you know, where the classes were conducted under trees, nature was the teacher, arts and sciences lived together. He dreamt of scholars from all lands meeting in a free, creative spirit. His autobiography, Jiban Smriti, gives a glimpse into this dream. Krishna Kripalini's biography of Rabindranath Tagore also captures his life and ideas beautifully. Now, speaking of his life's work, here is a chronological list of Tagore's key literary landmarks. Now, you might be wondering, Tagore wrote so much, how can we remember all these titles in the right order? Here is a secret, you don't have to memorize everything perfectly chronologically. In the exam, they ask about the works, not exact years, because many were first written in Bengali, then translated into English. So we use a simple, powerful technique, the first, middle, last formula. Okay, you only need to fix 3 anchors in your mind. For example, the first work, The Wreck, 1906, a novel. The middle work, Muktadhara, 1922, a drama. Last work being Fireflies, 1928, a poetry collection. Now, between these 3 points, create small memory codes, simple, funny stories that link the titles together. Here is how we do it. So, one code to help you. It goes like this. Gora works at the post office with Geeta. And there in the garden, they saw a rare crescent moon. So, Gora, the novel, post office, the drama, Geetanjali, the poetry, gardener, poetry again, the crescent moon, poetry. Okay? Now, code 2. At home, the stray birds were gathering fruits when a sannyasi crossed by, they flew. The Home and the World, a 1916 novel, stray birds, poetry, fruit gathering, poetry, sannyasi, a drama. Now, the middle code, Muktadhara. Muktadhara is a drama. Okay? Now, code 3. The king and the queen performed a puja at Red Oleander's temple for Chandalika Devi and sacrificed Malini and her sister Chitra to save their child. So these combines the king and the queen, the drama, Red Oleander's 1924 again drama, Natir Puja, dance drama, Chandalika drama, sacrifice drama, Malini again another drama, Chitra verse drama, okay, and the child. Now, code 4. Bhalguni is the spring season where Kacha and Devayani go to meet Karna and Kunti to pray for their mother. Cycle of Spring, it's a symbolic drama. Kacha and Devayani is a psychological drama. Karna and Kunti is a mythological drama written by him. The Mother's Prayer is a psychological drama. Now, the final work to remember is Fireflies, which came out in 1928. In short, first, lock the wreck, Muktadhara, and Fireflies in your memory. Then attach simple, funny stories or emotional stories and quotes between them. This way you remember Tagore's entire major works without feeling overloaded. It is not about cramming dates, it's about building easy to recall bridges in your mind. Okay? I hope this helps you. You can make your own quotes as well. Next comes Manmohan Ghose. When you trace the footsteps of Indian English poetry, you find a quiet, luminous voice. Manmohan Ghose, who lived between 1869 and 1924. His works, especially the songs and elegies, are important for UGC NET exam. An elder brother to Sri Aurobindo, Ghose grew up between two worlds, rooted in India, enchanted by England. Educated in England, he joined the famous Rhymers Club. That's important, with poets like Lionel Johnson and Ernest Dawson. Okay? This shaped him into one of the first true Indian voices in English poetry. His only major book during his lifetime is Love Songs and Elegies, 1898, a collection full of romantic idealism, gentle melancholy, refined lyricism. So critics often compared him with Matthew Arnold. Even his career echoed Arnold's as an inspector of schools. Oscar Wilde praised his poems, calling them full of quick, subtle sympathies. Wilde dreamed that India and Britain might meet through imagination, not empire. Ghose's early poems appeared in Primavera in 1890, a rare literary bridge between Indian and British poets. His Songs of Life and Death, 1926, edited posthumously by Lauren Binion, showed his mature beauty. Even W.B. Yeats praised it, calling it one of the most lovely works in the world. In poetic sequences like Immortal Love on Beauty and Mystery, Orphic Mysteries on Pain and Death, Ghose touched deep universal truths. His works weren't loud or flashy, it whispered quiet power, proving an Indian poet could master English forms without losing the soul. At the crossroads of East and West, Manmohan Ghose stood quietly, rooted, resonant, and timeless.